we know that there was a mill here in 1730. We know that from all the documentation. This mill was probably erected around the late 1700s, early 1800s, because the original mill would have burned down.
Right.
Which is very common, unfortunately, for flour mills because flour is flammable.
Right.
So you get a spark and you get an initial mini explosion that shakes the building, and then all the flour from the rafters and everything does a secondary explosion and takes the mill out. So that's probably what happened. So, but we know that this mill has been through many iterations. It was a grist mill, it was a sawmill, it probably was, we know it was a feed mill right before it shut down. It hasn't been running for 150 years since we came and started it about 13 years ago. So it's back in its heyday. We know that there were about 300 mills in Bucks County about 150 years ago because you used the water as power, and it was before the Industrial Revolution where they moved everything out to the Midwest and they could just load everything on trains and truck in the grain and truck out the flour. So this was water powered. It was run by a turbine, not a wheel. It's a low head dam. So it's the weight of the water hitting the turbine, making it spin, which moves all of the shafts, the line shafts and the gears inside the mill. Right now we are not water powered. We do have the turbine. We do have it restored. We've got a little more work to do on building the turbine box and then installing the turbine. The main line shaft is there. We have all of the belts. Everything is running, but it's running off 3-phase motors right now.
Right.
We know that the house was built in 1716, the oldest part of the house, and it was the original home for the millers. This was called Reed's Mill. And in the 1800s, they were doing really well, so they put on the new addition, which is the left side of the house and the third floor. So we also have a bread oven in the back. It was a commercial bread oven. So we believe that some of the tear that they took from the milling of other people's grains that they would use to commercially bake bread, and this was the old road here, so people would drive through here. We know that this mill was automated by a man named Oliver Evans. He had the number 3 U.S. patent. He was a Philadelphia boy at the time. And what he did was he looked at the milling guild, and he looked at all the different machines that are used, and it's all very heavy manpower. So instead of looking at the individual machines, he looked at the mill building as the machine. And he came up with 2 ways of moving grain, moving material from one machine to another. The first is the bucket elevator. And what this does is it moves through these columns from the basement all the way up to the 3rd floor of the mill. So when we bring grain in, we bring it into the basement, and then we use the bucket elevators to take it up to the 3rd floor of the mill. And from there, my husband can choose which machine he wants to send it to. Most of the work we do here is cleaning the grain before we mill it. So this would go through a first pass cleaning machine, and then it would be directed to the next one, and then as it moves through the building, then its final place before it's milled is it's stored up on the 3rd floor in big grain sacks that we can pull it when we need it for milling. So the bucket elevator moves things vertically. And the Archimedes screw would move things horizontally. So you can see this is an old one. It has little flanges that you can put in different directions so that you are moving the material one way or another. So when you bring the grain in, you either bring it in through a flex auger coming from the grain bins that you drove by when you came in, or we bring it in huge 2,000-pound totes, and then we dump it through a hole in the floor. We buy our grain direct from Bucks County farmers when possible. We are not organic, but we are natural. We prize organic. We prize local over organic and quality over local. So if there's not a good harvest, then we will go out of state if we have to. So we're going to follow the grain right now. We're going to imagine that the grain went through to the floor and has now been taken up to the 3rd floor. So if you want to follow me. So none of these machines were operable when we moved here. The building was filled with family furniture, things that were being stored here. We called them NMIs, non-milling items. So the first task was to empty the mill, and the second was to repair the roof because we had a lot of water damage. The roof was slate, and slate lasts about 300 years. We were on about 301. So we had to do that to save the integrity of the building. So all of the machines you see here, most of them were here, but in pieces. If you imagine like a Lego model of the Death Star, and then somebody just drops it. And that's kind of what happened with these machines. They were brought in. Mark's grandfather was a miller in Bavaria, Germany. He moved here. He decided to buy this place. He had a moving company, so he drove around to all the mills that were closing, collected all the machinery, brought it back here, never got the mill running, but over time things got jostled and moved, and they were transported in pieces, so the pieces ended up being spread all over the entire mill. So I like to say my husband is a forensic miller. So he was able to go back to the patent that's stamped on the machine and go to the U.S. Patent Office, look up what the machine was supposed to look like, what it did, where things go in, where they come out, and in that way he was able to put these machines all back together. It is insanity that somebody would tackle a job like this, but he's just crazy enough to do it, and he's made it work. If you look up, I like to say this is a picture of my husband's brain. So this is where the brain comes up, and then through these systems here, he can direct the top to swing around to go into whatever chute he wants, and the chute would go to a specific machine. These two are our first pass cleaning machines. So what they do is they're screens, and they shape and the things that we don't want, like the sticks and the chaff and the rocks and grasshopper legs and things like that, are all taken off, and then we get the grain. But the grain itself probably has other seeds that are similar particle size, so that this is just the first pass cleaning machine. So this is when the farmers bring the grain to us, they field clean it, but it's still, it's still in pretty rough shape. Our cleaning machines are so good, we lose about 10% of everything that we bring in because we want it to be perfect. And I'll show you some of the other machines.
And these cleaning ones are ones that he restored?
Yes, he restored these. Yep.
I see like all the lettering looks pretty old. So.
The lettering is pretty old. And he knows a lot of the history of, like the Eureka company, I believe, bought out a number of different companies. So you'll see Eureka on a lot of the machines. So we're not going to go over to that side. Not necessary, but here you see the clean grain sacks. So normally they would have had containers like this, or even boxes, but what my husband and my son came up with was using these totes, because you can empty them completely, and if they get dirty, you just replace them. So it's not like having a box that you would have to sweep out all the time. So this is much better. So we use 1800s milling methods with modern hygiene. Grain comes in and there's a fan, and so the grain is raised up on a bed of air, and it will, if it's too light, it will fly off and leave the machine. And if it's heavy, that's what we're looking for, then it goes on to the next process. So in that way, we can remove seeds that are called tombstones. If you plant them, they won't grow. So those are seeds that have not been formed properly. Cracked grain, things like that. And that comes out here, and the machine makes this wonderful little tapping noise as it runs. But all of the waste will go down through a spout downstairs, and it's collected, and we sell it for animal feed.
Right.
Because it still does have nutritional value. This is a Carter disc separator. Whoa, I'm going to fall in the hole. And if you look here, you can see that's a series of discs with different size indents. What happens is sometimes grain comes in and it has maybe vetch in it, or in one case that we like to talk about, one of our friends was a farmer. She works very, very hard. She hired someone to come combine her fields. Most farmers don't have their own combines unless they're really big. And so the man came in and combined her field. He had been combining oats previously, came in and combined her beautiful hard wheat. And so she came to us practically in tears with a mixture of oats and hard wheat. They will go through the machines that I showed you. They're about the same density, so there's no way to separate it. She basically couldn't do anything. We put it through this little baby here. Oats are a different shape than hard wheat, and we were able to get a bucket of oats and a bucket of hard wheat. So that's the beauty of this machine. So the machines that you see over along the wall, these are still have yet to be repaired and restored, so they're sort of in just hanging there until we get to it. But he oftentimes doesn't even know what a machine does until he gets it together. Now he's been learning, we've been doing this for about 13 years now, so he's pretty wise about the different types of machines and their functions. And if you go to the large mills today, the large commercial mills, you'll see a lot of the same types of machines. They're just a lot bigger, and they're all metal, and they're not nearly as charming. So we're going to switch order here, and I'm going to show you, this is a secondary process room. This is called our bolting room. And you can see the machine is running right now. I believe we're making bolted hard wheat, which is our bread flour, and that's the one that we sell the most of, but it also does take a lot longer to process than some of the other products. So when we go downstairs, I'll show you the mills, but what this room is, we mill the product and then we send it up into this room and put it through whichever machine he decides is appropriate. And we sift out 1/3 of the coarsest bran in the case of flour. And the machine is called a bolting machine, and it goes through a bolting cloth. So bolted is a miller's term that I have to explain about 20 times a day. So if it is the whole hard wheat, it just comes through the system but bypasses the machines and goes into a packet. So the machine that you can't see from standing here is our grits machine. So when we make cornmeal and grits, it's a one-pass process. So both the cornmeal and the grits are made at the same time. And then we put it through our grits sifter, which I'm super proud of my husband. I think our grits are absolutely superior to anything else on the market.
Right, that's one thing I'm starting to, now that I have a mill at home, I want to start getting into corn, using corn more.
It's we have 5 different types of corn, so I'll send you home with some samples. But so his grits process, he is able to get rid of that. I think it's called beeswing. It's that stuff that gets stuck in your teeth. He's able to get rid of a lot of that with the tweaks he's made to the machine. So it's truly superior grits. And the cornmeal is phenomenal. But I can go on and on about our products.
And these are all like older mills that he's restoring?
Yes. This one is more modern than the first one over there. So what I wanted to show you is that if we're missing parts, we 3D print them.
That's awesome.
So we have our own 3D printer, and then we test out the part or the gear, and if we know that it works, then we'll have it cast. So this is actually one of the carpeting it because this turned into a feed mill when all of the production went out to the Midwest. So this is actually smooth like your countertop in your kitchen, and that is not desirable for a mill.
Right.
So what the transition that we've made now is that all of the product is milled here. It's all boxed up here, and then it's taken over to our pole barn, which is our pack house and our cold room. So that's where we process our online orders, and that's where we put together our distributor pallets. So before COVID, most of our business was distribution to white table restaurants, and we watched that business literally disappear overnight. We had distributors that sent product back to us. We were very blessed in that we were able to pivot pretty quickly, and we were mentioned in the New York Times, and we went national overnight, which was terrifying because we also sent our production guy back to his farm in mid-Pennsylvania, and we had nobody here. It was just my daughter, the young woman there, my husband, and me. So we did everything. We were getting 100 orders a day. We were working like crazy. We were breaking down big sacks of grain and flour and putting it into smaller retail-sized packages. And now our retail is keeping us alive, and our distribution is just starting to come back as some of the restaurants start opening again. But it's been a rocky road, but we are grateful that the Lord blessed us with that real spike in retail business.